welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about the Blair Witch Project. Meg, did you see this movie when it came out?
I did. I didn't see it in the theater, which I think would have been fun, but I saw it when I saw it. I thought I was so cool. I watched it by myself alone when nobody was at my house, and I had to spend the night by myself in my house. And I was either 15 or 16. And I was like, nothing scares me. And I still had a vivid memory of it ending and me standing up and looking down the empty hall where I would have to go to sleep. And my parents and my brother were they were all not there. And I was like, oh shit, like that movie scared me.
This movie was, it was one of the few movies that has terrified me, and I was scared to go home at night too. Another one that's coming up soon is The Ring, and that's another one that made me feel this way.
Yeah, and they do it so subtly. When I was watching it this time, I was almost expecting like more, like in the sense of like more like in your face.
Yeah, like jump scares or something.
Right, but it's so, that ending, oh my gosh, it just leaves such a, I don't know. There are a few movies where I remember the moment that it was over, the feeling that I had, you know?
So this movie came out in 1999, and it is a found footage movie, and it was promoted as if it was real. Like the Sci-Fi Channel had a documentary, quote unquote, about how they found this footage and that they edited it together to release it, and they're hoping to find these people. And their promotional stuff was missing persons flyers. Do you remember seeing these up and about?
Oh yeah, I mean at the time it was just things like that weren't done. So it was like, well, it must be real. I mean, now I'm sure people now who maybe didn't live during that or were too young during it didn't realize, but at the time it was a phenomenon. Like this was not something that happened. You didn't promote movies that way.
It was unheard of. So the craziest statistics, this movie had a budget of only $60,000 and it made $248 million at the box office.
Holy cow. I was just doing research on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that movie had a budget of $60,000 in the 70s. So think of how much less money that went for in the 90s. So that's so impressive. And then to think of the money it made.
It has an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I did go see this opening night in the theater. I drove down to Duluth because it wasn't at my local theater, and people were reacting out loud the entire movie, and people were going into the movie still believing it was real.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, did you have any in the back of your mind where you like, this is real or no?
No, not by the time I saw the movie, but when I had watched the sci-fi documentary, not real documentary, but they promoted it as if it was real, I was like, holy crap, this really happened. We're really going to see this footage and these people are missing.
Yeah, no, I went through the same thing, but by the time I saw the movie, I knew it wasn't real, but I think we can all agree there were moments while we were watching it where I was like, maybe this is real. I mean, where it felt so authentic because movies weren't made like that. The found footage movies were not a thing.
Yeah. And okay, the hiring, a majority of the people are non-actors. I mean, the main three were had acting experience, but they're not professionals. They were not recognizable. And just the tone of the entire shoot, how they actually filmed it themselves, the questions that they were asking, how they were asking the questions to these people who were supposedly just filling them in on the Blair Witch legend. It's so perfect.
It's so authentic. The way that, all the people that they're interviewing in the beginning are just, they look like real people. The interaction among the three main characters is so authentic, of them just hanging out in the hotel room like before. The dialogue, it just feels so real. And again, it's one of those things where at the time that wasn't how movies were made. And so it was just like this mind fuck, because it was, and it made for such a wonderfully scary movie, because it was so subtle. That's all they need to do with these subtle things to like absolutely terrify.
A nice little subtle thing is that she pans over a book, and it's called How to Stay Alive in the Woods. And it's like, oh my God, that's foreshadowing, and it's ironic.
Yeah, it's like, I hope you read that whole thing.
One of my favorite lines is she's interviewing this woman who's holding her daughter, and she starts talking about the Blair Witch, and the daughter's like, no, 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 and covering her mom's mouth. And then the mom goes, don't worry, it's not true. And then she turns to the camera and mouths, it's true. And that makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, I do love that, because who hasn't done that?
And then just they're talking about, in part of this legend, how, well, the guy was killing people, and that he would make the one person stand in the corner before, like, while he killed the other person, and then it was their turn to die. And just that imagery of just talking about it, let alone seeing it at the end, creeps me out to this moment.
I know, I feel like I've got goosebumps. But yeah, just like, and again, it's because real people are talking about it. It's like the two guys fishing, they just felt so real. And so you're just like completely like mesmerized, and everything, there's nothing supernatural for like a long time. And so when it finally starts happening, it's like it's just so unexpected. And I remember the feeling of watching it, because I'm glad that I got to experience it in 1999, you know?
So another one of my favorite interviews is they're interviewing this woman named Mary, and she's telling the story, and she's quite the character, and she claims to be a ballerina, a scientist, and a novelist. Like, we've all met people like that.
Why are you looking at me?
But she's just got a way about her. It's like, oh boy.
And then later, Heather, is that the main character? She's like, I wasn't listening to her because I thought she was a lunatic. But then she's like, maybe I should have been, you know, like, because she was like warning them of things.
That was another nice touch, is that they used their real names in the movie. And so when you saw their names on the poster and then you heard them using their real names in the movie, it's like, wait, but is this real? Did this really happen to them?
Yeah, there was this, it just felt like I was questioning it all the time. Like I said, even when I was watching it, I knew it wasn't real. Like, I knew, but there was still that piece in the back of my head where it's like, maybe it is.
So they are on the lookout for this abandoned house or building, and I mean, they're creepy to begin with, but if you know that there's been like a murder that happened there or something, I mean, that's just upping the ante. And just camping in general, I mean, I'm not a camping lover. How do you feel about camping? I
like RV camping where there's a bed and a toilet and a TV and electricity and food, and like I am not about to like go in a tent. No.
I mean, this is hardcore, and I mean, it's not even hardcore because they're just like setting up a tent, but to me, this is my worst nightmare.
Well, and two, which is kind of interesting to note, there's obviously this like inference that there's a supernatural reason why they're lost, but honestly, like, what's happening to them from that perspective, like, has happened to many people where they get turned around in the woods, you know? And she's like, this is America. Like, this can't happen. But I mean, this has happened in our country where people literally get lost.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so scary, is that, okay, even if there isn't a supernatural element, which I think Mike says, like, I'm not going to mess with the witch, and I'm not going to mess with crazy people either. Like, he doesn't want to mess with either option of what is happening.
Yeah, well, no kidding. Like, if somebody is like pushing your tent or leaving slime on your stuff, I mean, whether it's supernatural or not, like, yeah, that's a good that's a good quota to go by.
So the first night, they wake up after the first night, and one of them says, yeah, I heard cackling outside. And like, the guy's like, if I had heard cackling, like, I would have been out of here. But what would you do if you were camping and you heard cackling outside your tent?
Well, if I'm in a tent, there's something wrong. Second of all, I would nope out of there so fast. But I mean, I guess you'd have to wait until like daylight. Like Luke said, he was tent camping with the kids and with our wiener of a Jack Russell Terrier, and there were coyotes, and he thought Cookie was gonna start like barking, but Cookie remained completely silent. Like, he's right between us right now. But he remained completely silent, and it was like, so even he knew, like, to just shut the fuck up.
Sometimes you just have to hide. You know, this is pre-GPS era. People didn't have GPSs, and you definitely didn't have like, you know, an option on your phone because people didn't have mobile phones yet. And it's also pre-internet in reality here to like fact check the claims that were made in the movie. So this, if you got this promotion and this movie sold to you as being real and you didn't have a way to fact check it, like you just went with it.
Oh yeah, I my hairdresser told me a story about how she like went and saw this movie at like some old rickety theater, and she thought like it was real, and then she had to go to the bathroom after, and she had to like go downstairs, and she was like by herself down there, and she like flipped out, and there was just something about this movie. I think this happens, you know, maybe once in a generation, but it just really resonated with people. And you're right, people couldn't just Google it and be like, well, it's bullshit, you know? So the way that it came about was just, I don't know, it really started a trend. Obviously now found footage horror movies are sort of a big thing, which I actually kind of like. There are awful ones, but I think there's some other good ones too.
Yeah, I still think it's a great concept. They're having trouble like reading the map, or they're not having trouble, but there's all this drama surrounding the map. And I just wanted to break out that, Meg, you are the map queen, because when we pre-GPS era were traveling around Vancouver, you read the map and I drove and we got everywhere we wanted to go.
Well, thanks. I never really thought of myself as a map queen.
Did you read a map or read maps a lot when you were doing all your traveling or road trips when you were younger or moving? Or like, how do you think you got good at that?
Yeah, I guess so. I really liked having the road atlas on my lap when we would well, our vacations were usually us moving. So yeah, when we were driving like cross country or whatever, I would always have the road atlas, and then I would like match it to, you know, where we were, and I would try to find little things on it. So I guess, yeah, I guess it's sort of an old school trait now. It's like, I don't know, being able to like do different knots or something. I guess it's not really super useful, but
Hey, if we're ever lost in the woods,
I'll just be screaming. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about that a lot while watching this. Like, what would my reaction be? Like, I think they do a good job of showing, like, how they are able to have sense of humor sometimes, then other times they're fighting. And, like, I feel like that's realistic.
Absolutely. They wake up, I think it might be after the second night, and they find these piles of rocks outside their tent. And they're trying to like make it logical, like, okay, they were probably there before we put up the tent. And Heather's like, no, because how could we have perfectly put up our tent among these pile of rocks? Like, if that's something like subtle like that, it's not necessarily supernatural, but it's creepy AF.
It is creepy AF. And yeah, because you could just be like, well, somebody did it. But if somebody came and did that, like, that's not okay either, you know? So yeah, it's very subtle, and it's like, in another type of movie, it could even be seen as not horror at all. But yeah, it's terrifying.
So the nights keep getting worse and more things keep happening. And then one morning when they wake up, there's all of these like stick figures created out of sticks and twigs and hung outside of their tent. And I was rewatching this with Mark, and he said that he and his brother, one night when they were camping with their sister, like right after this movie came out, made stick figures like at night and then hung them all around the tent for the morning, but she did not fall for it.
Big brothers, like, why do they have to torture? Well, good for her. I don't know if I would have freaked out or known it was somebody or not. I don't know.
I know I wouldn't have liked it. I'll put it that way. Oh, these two guys. I mean, Heather's super 90s too, but these two guys are so 90s. I feel like I went to high school with them because they just feel like the typical 90s dudes.
Well, it was funny watching it. I was saying to Luke, because at the time it was so of the moment, even though it's technically takes place in 94. But watching it now, I'm like, it's so 90s. Everyone looks so 90s and talks so 90s. Yeah. And like, it just, not that it doesn't age well, it does. It's very much still relevant, but it just felt so of its era, which is a long time ago now. I mean, it's 20 years old next year, right? Yeah. Jesus.
One of the things that creeped me out the most just because it's wrong on every level, is they're at night and they start recording now at night because they're waking up to these things, but they hear children's laughter outside of their tent. And it's like 3 a.m. First of all, there shouldn't be anybody around, but children laughing at that time of night, like, oh my God, do you remember the feeling of seeing that part?
Yeah, that's It's so scary. And again, it's subtle. It's like one of those things where it's just a little like left of center. Like it's just a little bit wrong because it's like children laughing. That's not scary, but children laughing at 3 a.m. in the middle of the woods when there's nobody around, like that's what's scary. So it's just a masterful way of just making you shit your pants.
And okay, so they have, these couple of cameras, so we're getting all these different perspectives. I really appreciated in the most recent Blair Witch movie how they were able to incorporate the drone cameras because that was some cool footage. Yeah. And then they had like the cameras like on their ears, so then you got like the POV shots. So, but they still did a good job even with this old school stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean it's very old school, but it never feels like a chore to watch. I have watched found footage movies where you almost like get nauseous or like it's not done well. But yeah, no, it's done really well with the, I guess, lesser technology. What did you think? I never saw Book of Shadows. Did you?
No, I heard it was bad, so I didn't see it.
And I wonder, they decided to just do it straightforward, and it's like they should have just kept going with the found footage maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I really like the remake. I mean the I guess it's a sequel.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I think I told a story that Luke covered his eyes for the last like 10 minutes, and then he wanted me to describe the Blair Witch to him.
That's hilarious. Okay, another night, they wake up and Josh is missing, and then they have to make a decision to like go on without him, and then they hear him screaming at night. Oh my God.
It's just these little things where it's like, okay, he's gone now. Well, did he leave? And obviously then you think back, his stuff was the only stuff that was like marked, and it's like, what did he do to deserve it? And he's just gone. And it's like, yeah, what do? Do you stay there all day and wait? Do you keep walking? Like, I don't know. It's one of those ethical questions of, I don't know what you do.
And you'll be reading about this in our book coming up next fall, but it's like if you were in that situation, like to know, what do experts say to survive? Do you try to find your person? Probably not. Or do you go on without them? Do you wait? So you're going to read about it, but that's so terrifying. Okay, the close-up confession shot. It's been parodied so much, and I know that, people have made fun of it in every single way, but watching it this time, it was still so powerful. It got me, and they're apologizing to their mothers.
Oh, I know. It's so sad. It's how everyone would probably feel in that moment. And I mean, there's proof of like kids who, when a shooter is in their school or something, they write letters to their mom or they text their mom. And so I think we can all sort of relate to that feeling of, oh, I'm not going to make it out of this. Who am I going to turn to? And it's my mommy. So I really like that. And yeah, it's hard. There is that moment of, you've seen it spoofed so many times that it's hard to sort of watch it with those fresh eyes again, but it's done so well, and it's done without any vanity. I mean, you see up her nose and she's crying, and it's not about an actress looking beautiful on screen. It's not like a Hitchcock blonde moment. It's the opposite.
It feels completely real and authentic, and it's emotional and it's powerful. And I wrote down, like, I think this is how a witch would trick me into my death. Somebody I love and care about would be screaming for help out in the woods. And I mean, if I truly cared about them, I would go help them.
Obviously, if it was our kids. I mean, maybe if it was our husbands.
But, I mean, this guy is screaming for help. Like, what are they going to do? Of course, they're going to get into this trap.
It's like the meme of, like, what would Pennywise say to you to get you down under the whatever you call it.
In the sewer.
In the sewer. It's like, what would he have to say? And yeah, I mean, screams of your loved one is I think we're not alone there.
Okay, so the final shot, I mean, I guess that's not the final shot, but the final moment that haunts me is Mike standing in the corner. It's effing nuts.
And what a subtle thing. What a low budget thing, too. They don't have to show blood. They don't have to show anything. I mean, the only blood I think in this movie is the teeth that we see. So they don't need to show anything. It's just this. I mean, he literally just has his face to the wall, which is when I got in timeout, so I'd have to do.
Did they call it timeout when you were a kid?
Yeah, I think so. Timeout, and then you go and you look and you go in the corner just like that. Yeah. I wonder if that was an inspiration for this.
I just cannot get over the amazing concept for this movie, what they did with so little, and like you said, they don't even show anything supernatural or any special effects. It was just based purely on the concept and how they shot it and told that story.
Good writing, good acting. You know, it was those two things. I mean, and also just the directing too. But it makes me as a creative person be like, I want to make a movie like that has those same principles where it's like I don't need like, and of course I love gore, I love all that, it's fun, but there's something to be said about a movie like this that doesn't focus on those things and instead just gets into your mind like a mind worm.
I mean, and it scares me more not to see anything in this movie than to see too much in another movie or to see it done poorly. Like, I think we've talked about this before, but I would much prefer a great practical effect than to some cheesy CGI. And I think I would prefer not seeing anything if it can't be done well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I love gore when it's done well, but I think in this, you know, when you're working with $60,000, it's like, okay, what are our limitations? And it just isn't that type of movie. And the Blair Witch doesn't need to. I mean, they make her so scary. We never see her. We never. I mean, if you think about like the concept of a mute killer like Jason or, you know, Michael Myers. This is like beyond that where we literally never see her, but we don't need to because we're shitting our pants. I mean, again, like I said, I still remember that moment of it ending and me, you know, stopping the VHS and being like, holy crap, what just happened, you know?
This movie, I tell you what. Now, I remember some people did say that they got motion sick from this. I know my dad came with me on opening night and we ended up having to sit in the very front row and he was a little motion sick afterwards, but I don't get motion sickness, so it didn't bother me. But I also think sitting that close to the screen didn't help, but holy crap, so scary.
It's just, I mean, this is what I love about horror. And again, they made me care about the characters. I didn't want them to die. When Josh goes missing, it's like, where's Josh? You know, it's like I'm worried. And that's effective horror. It's
So good.
yeah, it's really good. And just three people. And I don't know, it's fascinating. It's fascinating how they did it. And it was at the right time. And it just one of those things that sort of all came together. It's interesting to note, though, that all three of them, well, they have like varying sort of careers, but like Michael, I think, Mike and Heather, they both have about 15, 16 acting credits, and Josh has 82 acting credits. So it's just interesting to see the difference and like why, if they're all three in this movie, why did one blow up over the other two?
Or did they choose what way to take their careers because maybe they had good contracts and were able to come out with a lot of that money.
Yeah, that maybe they were like, I'm rich now, I don't need to be in a ton of things. But I mean, yeah, Josh, like, wasn't he in Bates Motel and things like that? So maybe he was more interested in continuing acting because Heather hasn't been in anything since 2008. But yeah, maybe she's rolling in it.
I remember, like, after the movie came out and it was revealed that, you know, it wasn't real, they re-released, Heather had done, like, a Steak and Shake commercial or something, so, like, they were releasing that. It's like, they're not really missing you guys. They're real. They're okay. They're alive.
They had to assure everybody. I mean, I'm sure there were people who were like, we need to get into those woods and find them.
Yeah. I mean, gosh. How, what an amazing concept. So, let's rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. What should our scale be?
Josh's teeth, because I'm pretty sure those were his teeth.
God, yeah. Wrapped up in a little bundle. 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. How many of Josh's teeth do you give The Blair Witch Project?
I give it 9 teeth because it's scary AF. The characters are well done. It's just a well put together movie, and I have good memories of watching it, and it holds up still.
I'm giving it 10 out of 10 Josh's teeth. I can't think of much more than I want from a horror movie. I thought it was still so scary, and it held up, and it's just a perfect movie in my opinion. So tell us if you've had any scary camping experiences. We want to hear about them. I hope you haven't had anything like this, because that would be too much for me to handle.
And you'd be communicating from beyond the grave.
Well, apparently, yeah. Have you had any scary camping experiences?
I feel like I've talked about this before, but I get scared of like the weather. Like I don't like when all of a sudden we're camping and then it's like I'm kind of a baby about thunder and lightning. I don't like it, especially when I'm just in an RV. But I remember I did tent camping on the Apostle Islands, and bears kept getting into stuff, and I was just terrified. And my friend that was sharing a tent with me, she just slathered herself in like apple like honey lotion or something, and I'm like, the bear is gonna come fucking eat us because you can't stop putting lotion on you.
That sounds like the worst idea.
Like I was like, stop. Like literally the night before, the bear had like come and eaten food out of our like, you know, area, and I'm like, and she was just slathering herself in this lotion. I'm like, we're gonna die. I was so upset. Like I thought I was gonna die, but I guess we made it out.
I mean, that's the thing too, though. I mean, obviously, like, I don't believe the Blair Witch is out there, but there's bears.
No, I mean, you watch a grizzly, like if you watch a Grizzly Man, like bears will fuck you up. That's a scary, actual real found footage movie.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, that's crazy.
That like him and his girlfriend like got eaten up by bears. So I mean, the Blair Witch might not be out there, but there's stuff that'll fuck you up out there.
Cookie nose, right? Yeah. With those coyotes.
Yeah.
I'm always hoping for that interview where he'll make a noise on video, but he doesn't. I mean, on audio.
He's not going to do it. But yeah, apparently he just was like, even though he barks at everybody who comes anywhere near our house, but when he heard those cougars that night, or coyotes, he was just like, I'm going to just be quiet. Everything's fine.
Send us your camping stories, we want to hear. And until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye, everybody.